Hello, class. Good to be here again, I suppose. I need to speak to you. Today's video lesson, as I put in the schedule, I will give important information about what to do next. Well, you're done with the resume and letter. You're not ready to do the progress report because you haven't made that much progress. What we're talking about here now is how to grow your paper from mere proposal to something bigger. Now, the final product, keep the goal in mind, is to have something that looks like my friend's here. This is her paper. It is available under learning materials for you to look at. This is the main part of her paper. It's not the front matter, but notice how this goes. She has the title, and then there's an introduction. Let me move this around so that you can see a little better. There we go. And she's writing all kinds of fun stuff. Notice there is a major heading, Problems with Urban Sprawl. Okay, it's centered 12-point font. You hit, she hit enter one time, and this is all double spaced. She has a subheading. One of the problems is automobile dependency. She goes through, there's diagrams, more about that in the next lesson. Lots of good text, lots of details. More about that a little later. Here is another subheading of problems with urban sprawl. Decreased land and water quality. So she's got that. Then we have lack of economic sustainability, impaired social health. These are all subheadings for the larger heading, problems with urban sprawl. Now she has another major heading, solutions offered by smart growth. And you have reduced automobile dependency with smart growth. See how that's working? Here's the bigger idea, solutions offered by smart growth. Then she has subheadings where she discusses reduced automobile dependency, preservation of the environment, economic sustainability, increased social capital. And she keeps on. There's another cool little chart we'll look at later, another chart. And she has a new subheading. Her solution has problems to it, in essence. There's obstacles to implementing this. There's government support of non-smart growth or urban sprawl. Notice how our headings and subheadings work. High initial cost. These are hindrances or obstacles, right, to implementation. Government support of the opposite. High initial cost of changing. These are all obstacles to having smart growth. Consumer preference for suburbia. I think I'd rather live in suburbia than some of these smart growth communities. They're so cloying. Solutions for implementation. How can we, she's gone from solutions to problems implementing the solution now to solutions to the problems. Well, I think you get the picture. Anyway, she goes through headings and subheadings. She did enough researching to be aware of where she needed to go. Hopefully you know where you need to go at this point. Consequently, as you move forward, I'll be discussing some graphics and whatnot. You want to be doing so strategically. In Research Essentials, if you don't have that in front of you, and you've got a hard copy where you know you can find it, you can hit pause for a minute, and I'll just go until you come back. You might want to write in it, but I lay this out. Here we are in the process. You've done all these things. By the way, when you write your progress report a little later on, part of what you do in that is explain in writing what you've done. You've done more than you think you have. More about that later. But here's what we've done. This bullet, create a working thesis. You didn't have, and a brief rough outline. You didn't really have to do that because you had that proposal. Introduction, statement of problem, proposed solution. That's sort of outline function. But you can't have a research paper that just says introduction, statement of problem, proposed solutions. Now, you will have an introduction. That won't have a heading in the final paper that's introduction. But you do have an introduction, so you can outline it and call it introduction. And then rather than having statement of problem, you'll have various aspects of the problems and solutions that form your major headings and inform your minor headings. And you're going to use that. You want to keep in mind your, as I put here, keep in mind your basic scope and direction. Okay, what exactly are you writing about? We've got to determine that a little bit more concisely and succinctly than you did in the proposal, just that crazy list of scope questions. In fact, if some of you might be able to pull some of those out as major points of an outline. But we need to now put it in order, a logical order that indicates where you're going. A working outline you want to get on right away. It is, as I put here, you keep in mind your basic scope and direction, which should be reflected in your evolving outline. It's a working outline. It's liable to change some. You're not married to this. I mean, we've already gone through the proposal. With the exception of one of you, I said, yeah, let's go forward. Okay? That person should probably get in touch with me or drop the course. You know who you are. But we're moving forward. Okay? We're moving forward. Now, you want to have that outline. Hopefully you can get it right away, but it can evolve and change. But you're going to be putting major headings, preferably even subheadings in. And now you'll take the parts of your working or your proposal and put them under those new headings, not just introduction, problem, solution, but wherever those are. And then you're going to take notes that are essentially portions of your draft right there. And you want to use this outline to assemble them in logical order. As I write here, literally use the outline for headings and subheadings during this process and simply type in or cut and paste your notes beneath them. For now, they help keep your ideas chunked, some kind of pieces, right? And they should be in the order they'd occur in the final paper. Hopefully you figured it out by now. So go ahead and do that. You just keep adding these chunks as we go forward, and eventually all these chunks will make up a paper. And make sure all the chunks are documented. You have those little parentheses with author, year, page. Make sure you keep your reference list updated. Even on the proposal, I had a few people citing sources in the proposal that weren't listed on a reference list. Make sure you do that. All the criteria that you need to know are listed in the research paper, samples, and criteria. You want to be mixing sources. You need at least 10 sources. But the gist of it is, okay, outline where you're going. Make those the major headings and subheadings. You may not have anything really under a subheading at this point, but that's fine. Just lay it out. That way you know what you've got and where it fits, and you know what you need and where it'll go. That's the goal of this working outline that's an evolving document. To be frank with you, I don't really care if you have an outline per se. It doesn't have to be a separate document. If you just want to lay out major headings, subheadings, in the format of the final paper and just put stuff under there, that's great. The gist of it, the essence of it must be, you know, and I can see, and we both can agree on what you have and where you're going and what you need. We need to have that clear so you're not wasting time. We just have basically the research paper to do, and there's some time to do it, but you better not diddle around because you can't do this in one night or 2 nights or 3. Be working on it now. So keep moving through. I want to show you some tools you have to help you out. There's some sample outlines for the research paper, and this should tell you just what you need to do. And just read through it. But here is my friend's paper shown as an outline. Okay, that's her big major headings and subheadings. That's what that is. The second page, this is what she actually submitted prior to writing the paper. This is a more elaborate outline where I showed all you should have are major headings and subheadings, but this is really the details she added. Okay, I'd study that. It might help you in developing your paper. Also, there are these other fun pieces here. There was a paper you don't have, but she was writing about migraines. This was her working outline. And then I filled in some gaps so you could see what actually went under those headings a bit more. Again, major headings are all you need along with some minor headings. But in these details, you don't put those in an outline. Just go ahead and, again, you don't have to even give me something that looks like this. You just have to have that. But have the major headings in the middle of the page, the minor headings hard to the left, and underneath it, whatever information that you have. So study the models. There's one on migraines. There's one on RFIDs. Again, that's the logic behind that. Now, going back to, I hope, Research Essentials. I hope we still have it. There it is. I wanted to point out a couple of ideas in Research Essentials. And if you haven't read it carefully or you've forgotten, go and look at it. Page 8 again, which I've left, has to do with the process, procedures, a strategy going forward. And you can read that again. I shared the major parts there, but it's there in print so that you can refer to it. This handout was the first part of Research Essentials. And here, this applies to you. Students frequently wonder how they're supposed to fill up page after page when all the sources supposedly, quote, say the same thing. Well, as I put here, the answer is the same for any writing, whether it's a research report, story, or poetry. You need to use concrete, specific, minor details to bulk it up. That's what you're doing. These minor details, I give examples. Give us an example of what you're speaking about. Okay? Now, rather than using a general term like drugs, give us specific drugs. This, I just ask, I'm not going to read it to you, but if you'll look at it carefully, this answers the question. How do you find more information? How do you write more information when all the sources say the same thing? What I find is very often the sources aren't saying the same thing. What you have to do is find more detail. Okay, you've got one study that said something, another study says something very similar. That's not repetition, that's more evidence. Do not be redundant, certainly, but we need lots of minor details. Actually give some more in-depth description or explanation of processes and whatnot. Go through statistics. Please use them, find them, be aware of them. Statistics, make sure they're from good sources. Make sure that they are not from heavily biased places. Make sure that they represent good sampling and they represent important random studies. Individual case studies I want to mention. You have to be careful here. Do not have a separate section that says case studies. Just don't dump them there. What you'll be doing is using these case studies or anecdotal information. That's an actual story or testimony, maybe, an actual incident. You'll use those as minor details to support the major details. It's not just something you slap on later on. And don't forget authoritative opinions. This is a good place, especially in the proposed solutions. Sometimes that's all we have are authorities' actual opinions. We don't have anything more tangible. That's fine. That's what you'll present, some of that. And there's also some good citation notes. If you didn't read it or it's not fresh to you, go back and look at these items, which I think will help get you in the mind frame that you need to be in. Continue to put down the headings, subheadings, find information and place it under it, preferably in the order you'll think you'll use it. You can always move it later. There will be gaps and holes. Later you can fill in the holes with more information, and you'll tweak it later as we revise and move forward. We'll be tweaking it so that it rolls and flows and isn't all choppy and crazy. Make sure, though, as you assemble these chunks of information that are cited, remember you can't have anything in there that doesn't come from a source. As you're assembling these chunks, make sure each chunk is coherent and complete unto itself, that it can make sense all by itself. And that way you won't have a big problem later trying to figure out just what you're writing. Give us complete sentences, chunks of meaning, paragraphs even you might be making that make complete sense all by themselves. So go for it. Godspeed. Keep pressing on. When it's due, just check the schedule. Check the schedule. It tells you everything. The next video session, I'll be getting into the requirements for graphics and giving you a few pointers on that. If you see any graphics you think are good, in articles, just save them. I'll tell you what to do with them later. And if you don't have any, I'll show you how maybe you can find some. And we'll discuss that in the next video. In the meantime, get some work done, stay out of trouble, be safe, read a lot. Use the time, develop yourself. And I'll catch you later. Be good, have fun, stay out of trouble. You can do all three. If you can't do all three, at least do 2 out of the 3, and I don't have to tell you which one you can chuck. Catch you later on. Bye.